Hey, welcome to YOLO with ToLo. I am Toan Lonnell, one of your hosts, and Lonnell Williams is just about to chime in here. Let me add him. How you guys doing? I got a new light here, so I'm hoping that it illuminates and actually looks better this time. Hey, Kevin. Let me get Lonnell up on here. Just for those of you guys who are joining us for the first time, YOLO with ToLo, YOLO as in you only live once, with ToLo, ToLo me being Toan, Toan, and Lonnell, my co-host. Every Wednesday we have decided, Lonnell and I, for the last almost 3 months now. I think this is Kevin, this is episode 13? Kevin is our, there's Lonnell. Kevin is our producer slash timekeeper this week. D is gone. Let me add Lonnell now. Lighting is everything. What's up?
Hey, okay, wait. I'm trying to get my light out the way here.
That looks really cool. It almost looks like a halo up on the side. We're well lit today, aren't we? What's up?
What's going on?
Hey, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How about yourself?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks everyone for joining us here at YOLO with ToLo. Kevin, thanks for sharing with my personal page. If you're able to share with yours, Lonnell, before we get started, that'd be awesome.
I'm gonna do this right now.
So how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I missed you already.
So you had a little drama getting back home to California, but I'm glad you are.
Don't get me started. Let me just go. So really quickly, Delta Airlines, they were really nice, okay? But I was taking Delta Airlines. There were thunderstorms overhead. It was like 7:25 p.m. I was supposed to take my flight. Remember, I kept pinging you like what seemed like every 20, 30 minutes.
I was like, Lord, is he going to need a hotel again? What
I know, right? I was like, Lonnell, I'm going to have to stay with you. But it was literally 7:22. I was supposed to take off. Then they were like, oh, delayed till 9. And I was like, okay, namaste. It's all good anyway. I'm trying to look the brighter side of things. There was a long line when you dropped me off at the airport. And it was so crazy. So it was like 9 o'clock. Then it was like, ding. At just 30 minutes before 9, it was like, oh, 10 o'clock, then 10:30, then 11, and then 11:15, and then 11:55. We're like, oh, yes, we're gonna get on, right? Or I'm gonna get on. And oh my gosh, I overhear the woman at the desk at the gate. She was like, well, now the pilot has timed out. I guess that's a technical term for like y'all working too much overtime.
Yeah, because they have a certain amount of time they can be on duty. So if they delays too long, then they max out for the day.
Yeah. So anyway, so they're like, oh yeah, so now the crew is timed out, and then they're looking for a crew, and then we find out this is just an hour before the flight. The delayed flight 4 times over is delayed. Then I got another message saying, or I heard them over the gate person saying, okay, now they're trying to look for a pilot because the pilot timed out. So I was like, baby Jesus, test my patience. And get this is the kicker. It was like Comedy Central. So we're just about to board. The lady's like, okay, we're preparing to board right now, right? And then all the lights, the emergency lights start flashing. And they were like, there's been an emergency reported in the Atlanta airport. Please prepare to evacuate.
The world's busiest airport. We've always got some drama. Well, I can't believe this is like our 13th episode.
I know, 13. Woo woo. 13 is usually 13, like Friday the 13th. I don't know, but anyway, it's always good up in here.
Right.
But for those, so anyway, I got home safe, and the silver lining was I saw one of my good friends, Brandy B. She was one of my favorite TV reporters when I was reporting here in San Francisco. So Brandis was actually delayed too. So we actually got to like catch up. We went to dinner. It was like really nice to catch up. But for those, some of you guys may have seen us go live. It was a special, episode 12 was special because Lonnell and I, for the first time, went live because we're both in the same city, Atlanta. And I was there speaking for the Asian American Journalists Association. There's a thing called Media Access where I was the moderator / on the panel. And the people that came were from nonprofits in the audience. They wanted to learn how to tell their story in a more impactful way. And we also were training them on how to get their stories out to the media, and there were people from different platforms like radio, print, TV, online, and all that stuff on the panel. And it was really awesome. And it's funny how, like you said, that there are no coincidences. Is that what you said? Oprah had told you there are only like divine intervention that happens. But it was so amazing. Like at the end of the speaking engagement, this woman comes up to me, and she's kind of like, you could tell she's a little shaking a little bit. And she started opening up and telling me her story. And I saw like this light bulb go off. And she was saying that she was a caregiver for her elderly mother, and her mother just passed away a few months ago. And she looked at me, Lonnell, in the eyes, and she started like bawling. And she was like, will I ever feel the joy again?
Right.
And it really hit me hard, just because, you know, I'm no stranger to loss. Like this last year, I'm going to drop kind of like a truth bomb. So those of you guys watching for the first time who don't know me, my brother-in-law had committed suicide last year and left behind, my sister's husband left behind 2 kids. And I lost 4 family members in a year's time during my first job, my first TV job straight out of college in 2000. So that really shook me. You know, like the energy, the vibration when people are sharing and have the courage to share something that's so deep. And she just looked at me in the eyes and she goes, Toan, will I ever feel joy again? So when I saw you, I was still shaken up about it. And I did give her an answer, and I'll share that with you later. But you were like, oh my God, throughout the whole day, remember, you were like, Toan, something about grief, you want to, you know.
And I was talking about losing my grandmother. Yeah, exactly. And then we were like, we need to do a show about this. We need to talk about this, because people are definitely in this space.
Yeah. So yeah, let's get to it. And the funny thing is, a few people had also sent us some messages. It's so funny because a few people sent us messages. I talked to other people in real life about grief and loss. And one of our favorite new shows on Facebook Live, Red Tabletop, Jada Pinkett Smith's show, was also about surviving like loss, I think it was. And anyway, so it's funny how like the themes usually for our show are based upon, you know, viewer engagement and what people send us via DM the week before or on our Facebook wall. But this week, let's get down to it, like grief and surviving loss, personal, professional, or spiritual. But really quickly, there are 4 different segments. Segment 1 is ToLo's Hot Topics. Is this backwards?
It is backwards.
You know what, Kevin?
So maybe... So can you...
there you go.
There.
Boom.
Okay.
It's weird because I thought I hit that button. Anyway, Kevin's going to get on me about that one. Okay. So, boom. Segment 1, ToLo's Hot Topics, where we talk about topics during the week. Of course, this week there's some death stuff going on, too, that we could talk about.
Definitely.
Segment 2 is Dump the Hump.
The Hump.
Where we
Getting
talk
over
about
that hump during the midweek. Definitely so. And
challenges that we're facing. You're facing. Obviously, this is our show that, but it's, you know, even though it's a show that we host, you're also a part of it. The third segment, well, this is my favorite little segment.
That's my favorite too. It's moving. There
Talk
we go.
to ToLo.
Talk with ToLo. Yes, well, I love engaging and getting your answers, or answering your questions and asking you questions and getting your feedback, because I've learned quite a bit actually each episode.
Me too. And the funny thing is, people send us questions. I always say we're like people are like, well, what's your show about? And I'm like, it's sort of like a modern day Dear Abby with a sort of like a you know, Regis and Kathy Lee, if y'all remember that. Or is it Ryan and Kelly now? Anyway, segment 3 is Talk to ToLo. And segment 4 is, this is something we really need help with. So we talk about this all the time.
This is my most challenging segment because I'm like, ciao, bye. But yes, that's my hardest segment. All right, well, let's get it going.
Me too, but let's get to it. Hot topics.
Hot topics, ToLo's topics. I don't know what, I guess one of the things that came up since we're talking about grief and loss was the ruling from the Fulton County, whoever examiner, about the CDC doctor, that they ruled his death a suicide. He was found in the river, for all of you who don't know. There was a doctor who was
35-year-old CDC employee, Centers for Disease Control employee, Timothy Cunningham. He's found dead by a fisherman. And he had been missing for a couple weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he literally left work and no one ever heard from him again.
Yeah. Did they ever find out why he Did he leave a note or
No,
anything?
well, conspiracy theorists, but I don't know. Apparently, one of the things that's been going that I've heard in circles is that, he was definitely on the breakthrough of something. I don't know if it was a cancer, something basically that was going to potentially interrupt the profit margin for the health industry. Because we know health industry is motivated by profit, not by healing.
Yeah.
So there's conspiracy theorists around that, because like, what 35-year-old attractive successful black gay man goes and jumps in the river? So it's interesting to see. I mean, I'm not saying that he didn't commit suicide, but I'm not saying that he did either.
Yeah, well, they're saying autopsy has confirmed that the body belonged to this missing doctor. Cause of death wasn't released till today, and it was suicide. Apparently, I guess. That's what it said.
Yeah, they can manufacture, or they can spin anything. We watch this.
Yeah.
We see fake. We're told about fake news every day. So I'm not saying that it is true. I'm not saying that it isn't true. But I hold it all in question these days.
Yeah. So the crazy thing is, as some of you guys may know, it was almost a year now when my sister called me and she was like, "Oh my God, like her husband had committed suicide." She and my niece, that was 8 at the time, found him, shot himself in the chest, and, didn't leave a note. And it just, on the outside, everybody was like, his name is Chris, and he's a brother to me. He's known me since I was, most of my life, more than most of my life, not more than, but most of my life. And, like, you never know what people are going through, because when people see him, he's a handsome guy, he's fit, he's like 50, early 50s, 53, 6-pack, doctor. I mean, like, beautiful kids, beautiful wife. And it was just really shocking to a lot of people. But at the funeral, many people spoke about, well, God, I wish I had his life, or I wish I looked like him, or, and
but you don't know anyone's
crazy.
story. You don't know the totality of anyone's story.
You don't. Yeah.
Like I say, don't judge my life by the chapter you walked in on. It's like there's a comprehensive thing here, experience here. So you can't just judge it by the little bit that you see. And a lot of us do that.
Absolutely. And I am honestly still trying to figure, still going through the grief. And I'm the kind of person that when tragedies happen, like, I think it's the journalist in me, or it's just innate, that I like GSD, get shit done, getting stuff done, making sure that they move back to California. They were in Florida, and helping them move back to California, closer to the family in Sacramento, and like doing. And it wasn't until like 8 months later where I found myself not wanting to really, like, not finding the joy, feeling, the darkness, not feeling like the warmth come in. And I was sort of like depressed, and not even sort of, I mean, I wasn't clinical or anything that I went to the doctor or saw, but I have I've been just trying to process it. And death is a really hard thing, because no matter who you are, when you are hit with tragedy, like, you can never say, like, oh, I'm sorry. Or you can say, even if you've experienced a lot of loss, I can never say that, oh, I'm sorry, I know how you feel, because you don't. Like, each loss is so individual and different.
Right.
Barbara says most people lead lives of quiet desperation, and you're totally right.
Right.
And Tracy,
Tracy is actually a widow. She's actually the subject matter expert on this particular subject of grief. Friend of mine from California. But It's true. You were talking about your friend that committed suicide. I had a friend that committed suicide last year also, and he was only in his 30s. And I still couldn't wrap myself around it. Even though it was interesting, because our last conversation, we spent the day hanging out in Chicago. Something just seemed like it was one of those things. But I wasn't thinking that he was gonna, kill himself. But it's interesting, because I was able to tell him how much I loved him and how much I appreciate our friendship. And even though we don't get to hang out as much, I just need you to know that. And I say that to say, when that I was jarred and shocked by the way that he passed, but I wasn't like devastated, like I left unfinished business. And I say that to say, for those people that are in your life that you care about, you need to be fully present in the moment with them and share that love all the time. Not not having regrets, or if something like that does happen, then it's like, well, I should have, would have, could have, and now I'm harboring guilt and these unresolved feelings. I'm not saying it makes the it makes the pain go away, but it will soothe your heart. I think it'll soothe your heart a little more if you're just fully transparent. Like with me, with my dad, I had to forgive him, but I didn't do that till 10 years after he passed. But I realized when I was laying on the floor in a hotel room crying over a man, I was like, why am I back in this same effing situation again? And it was
that's
like,
a different kind of grief and loss. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This is not about him. This is about you, boo, and your unresolved forgiveness. Yeah. And I was able to do that work, and then it made it full circle for me and put me in a much stronger place.
And Tracy said grief is the worst indescribable pain ever. Tracy, we'd love to know how you're working through your grief or working through healing. So one of the ways is I have a podcast called Truth Dare, and I interviewed a good friend of mine who is a psychologist. Her name is Dr. Gladys Otto, and wrote a book, ATO, Dr. Gladys Otto, wrote a book on the good goodbye, how to say goodbye to loss, any sort of loss, and loss also as in situations that don't serve you anymore, like you were saying, like crying over a man or somebody that you're in a relationship with, crying over the grief of maybe your child coming out to you or your child going off to college or whatever, and
or a job you've had and you've lost.
Yeah, that there's so many different layers, and it's not the same for everybody, and not for one person it might be to go out into nature and just to be, and somebody might need to go and work out, and it's just really different for everyone. But Gladys had something that one of the ahas that I had when I met her, and thank God, it's just like God sent her to me just at the right time, because that was she kind of helped me kind of walk through the stages of grief when my brother-in-law had passed away last year. And one of the interesting things that she said that kind of really was mind-blowing to me was the fact that when someone dies, usually in the psychology world, acceptance is the last thing, but spiritually too, you and I know this, we talk about this all the time, like if you get a flat tire, it is what it is. And Eckhart Tolle says it in one of our favorite books, The Power A New Earth, how it is what it is. And once you sort of just accept the fact that it's happened, and then you move so that you can move forward. Like my brother-in-law is not coming back. My dad, my aunt who died of cancer in 2000, and my two grandmothers who are like mothers to me died, and they're not coming back. So how do we then move forward with that? And Tracy says, Tracy,
she read 25 books. That's a lot on grief. 25 books on grief, and also joined a local widow support group. And I think that's important. I mean, you do need to have, to know that you're not alone when you're in that space of grieving. And we all do. I think the process is just different for everyone. We just do it. Everyone deals with grief differently. I know, even if you've been to different types of funerals. I mean, I've been to Catholic funeral when my grandfather passed when I was a kid, and I remember it was very orderly. I've been to another relative on my Pentecostal side of the family, and people were trying to jump in the casket. So, I've seen,
oh my goodness,
so I'm saying, so everybody deals with it, just the whole process of it differently. So there is no one size fits all or some prescription that's universal. I think that having the love and the complete joy or whatever that, or if it's a person that's brought pain, and the forgiveness, you just have to have that whole, you can't, you want to resolve all that stuff while they're still on this side.
Yeah. And that's I'm going to play devil's advocate, because that is so easier said than done, right? Because there are some people in my life now who, I just left unresolved, because I'm like, okay, I'm done. Yeah. And
well, that's how I do with my dad. Hey, DeMarco.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with my dad. Like I literally, his ashes sat in my stepmom's garage for 10 years. And when I had that breakdown in the hotel in Seattle on a layover for my job, I was like, okay, you got it. What's the work? And so I had to I didn't want to do and literally the fact that his ashes sat in the garage for 10 years should speak volumes. But, but I didn't want to do it without my sister or my younger brother, right? So my younger brother was like, dude, have at it. My sister did want to do something. So I was like, you know what? If he didn't do anything else right, he created these wonderful children. Yeah. And so I said, I think that deserves honor and respect. And we need to be in a space where we can forgive him for what he didn't know and how we suffered because of that. And we took his ashes and spread them out in San Francisco Bay. And since then, it's been, I've had such different, or deeper, I should say, reverence for my dad. But it took me 10 years after he physically transitioned for me to get to that point. So it's like I said, everybody's process is different.
So, wow. I didn't know the story. So Kevin, our producer timekeeper today, said segment 2, but segment 2, Dump the Hump, is basically where we talk about kind of like drop our own kind of words of wisdom before we crowdsource wisdom. So I want to ask you this. How, after 10 years, how did you find it in yourself to forgive your dad?
Well, you know, I've talked about this before, how it's hard for me to listen to the whispers, obey the whispers. I would hear them, those spirits were like, but I wasn't trying to hear that. And really, it was just the failure of this relationship and realizing that it ended, the terms in which this relationship ended were almost identical, I mean, verbatim to a situation that I had had years earlier. And I was like, okay, this is not about either of these people. This is about you. And so when I, you know, in the midst of all of that pain or that level of grief, I was like, what? Okay, universe, I'm here. I'm listening. You have my undivided attention. You know, so what is it? And it was like, you need to forgive your dad. You've got unresolved issues with that. And that was when I just knew I had to, because I wanted to stop hurting. And I know part of that hurt was hurt for my dad, but I had buried that hurt in the anger that I had towards him. And in the relationships that I was seeking, clearly I was still reflected that pain. And if you don't hear it the first time, it gets a little louder and a little louder. And so finally, that hotel room, the bricks came crashing down.
Yeah, we keep talking about throughout our conversations how if you don't learn the first time from a person, a situation, an experience, it comes back in different ways, shapes, and forms, and it'll keep knocking. I think for me, one of the biggest kind of life lessons is one from one of my spiritual teachers, Dr. Michael Pritchard. Michael Pritchard was Robin Williams' best friend and helped him kind of walk through his kind of own inner demons. And he's a well-known comedian here. He uses his comedy to heal. And he told me, he was like, Toan, you know, when you hold on to any situation, whether it be a man or woman or a job or whatever, grief that you're holding, when you hold on, you get dragged. And I think after a while, like you had that aha. I didn't have, it's funny how like, as we get to know each other more too, we have very parallel lives, you know, like growing up poor, and so on and so forth. But I didn't realize this with your dad too, that you also didn't have a good father figure, or, you know, you had issues with your dad, because I did too. But once he called me, my brother called me when I was in Wisconsin at my first job as a TV reporter, and he was like, come see dad. He got diagnosed with stomach cancer and he has 6 months to live. Like, I packed my little Civic and I drove home. Like, I went home first, flew home to look at the situation. And then, for me, it was instant. Like, I let all like you said, like, let all the bygones kind of like, I'm like, that doesn't matter anymore. Like, all the stuff that I also learned, I think that the biggest aha I've had in this conversation now and in dealing with grief is, if, like, everything is here to teach you something. And you always say that, and I'm like, oh, what did dad teach me about his relationship with my mom? And he had cheated on my mom, and, just relationships were just really, weird, like I didn't understand love and all that, and because I didn't see a good example of it with my parents. And I what that made me realize is in my own personal life that I should also, in my heart, see what didn't feel good and not repeat that, in my own personal life. And
I like what DeMarco says here about sometimes your emotions go unsupervised. When your emotions go unsupervised, you finally accept and you unlearn while detaching from the definitions of words you held with strong emotional memories. Wow.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh. Yes. I'm gonna let that sit for a minute.
that needs to marinate. Y'all need to screenshot that little comment. Thank you, DeMarco.
Okay, for sure. I want to jump into this segment real quick. Segment 3, it's called Talk to ToLo, because we're getting a lot of feedback and engagement here right now. With Tracy says, my words of wisdom are feelings, are feel the feelings and express your emotions. You got to feel to heal. You know what? That I actually just learned last year, and it started my road to kind of healing the depression or grief or whatever, that icky gloominess, Tracy. So thank you for that. I always thought, when it comes, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be feeling this way. Let me go make myself happy. Let me do something. But you're right. You have to, like, if whatever situation you're going through, if that little boy, I believe we all have a 10 or 11-year-old, adolescent boy or girl that comes and visits us and like kind of haunts us sometimes. But I used to be like, oh, go away, go away, go away. But one thing I've learned, and this is from my friend Dr. Gladys Otto too, is she was like, sit with it. So those are really wise words of wisdom, Tracy. It's like you have to sit with it and say, hey, it's okay, little Toan. It's okay, little Lonnell. It's okay, Tracy. And
it's
sit
okay.
with it, feel it, but don't let it kind of just don't let it last forever and ever and ever. Like I would feel sorry for myself and let me feel sorry for myself for 30 minutes and go on, or whatever time it takes you. But I would move on. That's really important.
Sit with it, but don't get stuck there.
Yeah.
All right, we're running out of time. This goes by so quickly. Okay, what's next?
Okay, so hold on. I want to read one more thing. Kevin, our producer says, my mother dealt with cancer for 3 years before passing. Still miss her dearly, but I treasure the time we had together before she went up to heaven. So I was able to let her go without any regrets. And I know now she's in peace. Isn't that the truth, though? Like knowing that
I did get to have that same opportunity when my grandmother passed, because I just loved her. So I still love her, and I still feel her and honor her every day in my life. But having that closure was just having that relationship with her while she was here on this side made her transition a little easier, a little less painful.
Yeah, gosh, it's so hard. It's just so hard. Just start when it hits you, when grief hits you or tragedy or some sort, it's so hard just to kind of siphon through everything. So you got to give yourself a minute, be kind to yourself. I mean, and everybody deals with it differently. For me, it's like reaching out to people, talking with people. And the best piece of advice that I could give is something my friend Keely said to me. Keely's a soul sister of mine. And I've known her since we grew up in the same neighborhood since we were kids. And she said the best thing. People are like, oh, I'm sorry, or how you feeling? And, you don't want to hear, you're sorry for what? I don't know. I get that that's what people are trying to, people
that's what we're trained to say. That's the nice, polite thing to say.
And she said to me, she said, Toan, I'm so sorry about your loss. And I just want you to know that you're not alone. And that if you need anything, like even in the middle of the night, I'll have the phone next to me. Just call me. And I'll either run over there and lay down with you, or I'll just sit on the phone and we don't even have to say anything.
Wow.
And knowing that for me, knowing that you're not alone in this, like, look, we're talking about now. Look, Barbara, Kevin, like Tracy, all these people are chiming in. And like you and I talk about this stuff, it also makes you realize that, your journey, you're not alone. And that there is hope. And I had mentioned earlier that I was speaking at this workshop. I was doing a speaking engagement in Atlanta, and this woman came up to me earlier in the show, and she was like, she said something to me that really touched me. She said her mom had passed away, and she's trying to figure out now her professional life, and she just feels so like gloomy, like there's a dark cloud over her. And she looked at me in the eyes, and she started crying, and she goes, will I ever feel joy again? And I told her, I gave her a hug, and I said, I promise you that if you, continue to accept and seek ways to heal, that you will feel the warmth again of the sun. You will see, spiritually, that God is there. And I've had a couple relationships. Actually, I was speaking with another fellow journalist over at dinner in Atlanta when I was there, and he was like, he was just so mad because he was like, my dad, passed away, and he came here from, another country, and he put us all through school, and he worked so hard, and he never saw my kids grow up. My first son was only a few months old. He never saw me and other people graduate and move on, and all that hard work. And it was still sitting with him, and I could feel his energy. It was just sort of so stuck, And I told him exactly the stuff that we're talking about now. Like, you're not alone. Sit with it. Feel the grief. Move forward. But also,
don't get
flip
stuck
the script.
There.
Yes, don't get stuck. Flip the script. Count your blessings. You and I have always talked about this. Is count your blessings. I'm like, wait, you've had your dad till he was like 60 something, 70 something. That's longer than I had my dad. My dad died at 53. And he was in utero when his dad passed away. So he didn't experience his dad, good or
Right.
bad, you know? And so once you start trying to see the stuff, count the stuff that you're grateful for, because I don't think that you can be grateful. There's no space when you're holding the space to grieve. There's no place for, once you bring in light, there's no darkness, right? Once you bring
Right.
in what you're grateful for, it's that's, I think, where the healing starts, you know? And
this has been great. Okay, we're over, so we gotta let these people go so they can go back to their lives tonight. But
I know.
So we gotta wrap it on up.
Okay.
We're sorry for going past our 30-minute mark. We love you and appreciate you hanging there with us.
Wait, I want you to give us one more piece of word of advice as people, and then I'll tell you one thing before we go.
On
about death, grieving, and about words of wisdom for grieving.
Well, I think if you just understand that death is a part of life, and that is life is a continuum, and you can take your ego out of it, you can be much more at ease with the process. Ooh. And again, and by that I mean, if you're not so attached to your feelings and making it about that person's transition about you and understanding it on a true spiritual perspective, you will still, you'll always have that. I tell you, my grandmother, I hear her every single day. Yep. Now she transitioned 8 years ago, but she is with me every single, and I, you know, and it's just because having that type of reverence and love for her while she was here, and through the process of her transition, which hurt, which was painful, but I wasn't stuck in my pain. It was like, let me just honor this woman because she is a fierce cookie. So, so I'm, you know, I still celebrate her every day. I do wish I could still like have her pop me in my mouth or something, you know, physically, but she does it spiritually all the time.
But, you know, I believe we've talked about this a lot too. Like, we're all energy. And while your physical form, me being an Asian man, you being a black man, like when we're not here anymore, like our legacy, it continues through the experiences and the things that we have taught and other people. And isn't it funny how sometimes you're just like, and you can feel the energy of your grandma, or I could feel the energy of my grandma in the room. That's another thing we have in common, because we like loved us, you know, we loved our grandmas, you know. But isn't that so?
Doorbell?
I think so. Well, I don't ever answer the doorbell.
Coming by.
Okay, they're like, get off the phone. No, that's Kevin saying, get off the phone. No, I never answer the doorbell anyway. But anyway, I just want people to know that, you know, we're here also to let you and I let each other know weekly that you're not alone, and that there is hope out there, and that live life now. You know, life is here right now, right? And don't wait till you have a death sentence, or you get sick, or an accident happens for you to like enjoy life and have that aha. Hopefully you have that aha now, you know? So we would love to hear more of your comments. We want to let you guys go now because y'all got to go eat, and so do we, and, you know, carry on with your lives. You're a little later than I am, but please, you know, we really treasure your comments and your questions. Maybe we should continue this conversation if a lot more people kind of chime in.
Yeah, we can always have another part of it, absolutely. And we did not get to digital detox, yay, because
it's okay. I know. We'll talk about that next week. But please,
next week,
if you like what you see, if you like what you see, please like our page so you can get updates. We'll see you next week. Yes. Hopefully, depending on your flight schedule, at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 Eastern.
Definitely so. Be sure to share the video if you like what you heard tonight. Please, please, please give us some more tips, because I'd love to include your feedback in the next part, or the continuation of this conversation.
Yes.
We love y'all.
Love you guys. Love you, dude. Take care.
Have a good one.
Thanks,
all right,
guys.
I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.